So this is the P5000, and it's by Oukitel, and it is a 5,120 watt-hour power station, really designed more as a power backup, home backup solution, or a mobile power solution for something like an RV or a large camper, that kind of thing. It does say portable power station, but it does have wheels, and it does have a telescopic handle over here, but it is a beast. It weighs in excess of, I would say, 100 pounds. So getting it up on this table was a bit of a lift, if you know what I mean. So it does have an RV30 connector on here, so up to a max of 30 amps out. It has a 2200 watt continuous rated pure sine wave AC inverter. But to go over some of the other outputs here, it's got your standard 12 volt, 10 amp car socket right there, cigarette lighter adapter socket. And then it's got a couple of, I think these are DC 5525s. And then it's got a 24 volt, 10 amp socket right here that is a 4-pin, maybe aviation style, so you have to have an adapter for that. But you could use that to power a 24 volt system if in fact that's the kind of system you have. I already mentioned that 30 amp RV30 connector that it has right here, but it's got 4 20 amp AC plugs here, standard 3-prong plugs. They can handle up to 20 amps. Now in terms of USB ports, that's not really the focal point of this particular type of product, but it does have USB outs on it if you want to use them. And of course it's got PD100s. It's got 2 of those Type C PD100s. That's one-way output only. And then you've got 2 of these quick charge 18 watt Type A ports and 2 of the sort of older style Type A ports that output something like 12 watts. So that's it there. Now on the side, I've already mentioned that it takes that XT60 connector for the solar up to 1,000 watts. And then it's got a little switch, and I'll have to put a close-up up here of that, but a little switch that allows you to knock it down from, say, 1,200 watts to something far lower than that if you don't have to fast charge this thing. And it's got a cool little compartment on top to store your cables. And it does come with an XT60 to MC4 cable. It comes with an XT60 to car adapter there, and it comes with a big old standard AC charge cable as well. All right, let's. I did charge this thing up already because I literally just boxed it, so we're at 100%, and I want to run a AC usable capacity test. How many watt hours can we really get out of this through the AC port? So I've got a space heater here. That's a pretty good discharge rate and a pretty decent load, and I'm going to hook up my kilowatt watt meter, and we're going to find out, running this all the way down to 0, what we actually get. So let me go get that. All right, so I do have this thing reset already. Let me go ahead and plug it into one of these ports. All right, so the kilowatt meter is basically telling me it's outputting currently without a load about 109 volts. Now, I know that there is some configurability in that, but I don't remember off the top of my head how to change that. So I have to report back and see what kind of variability we have in actual output voltage. In the meantime, let's go ahead and run the capacity test. Let me go ahead and plug my heater in here and switch it over to kilowatt hours. I'll just leave this on high. I do find it interesting that the display actually does say, in addition to what your power output is, it does show you the voltage AC that it's outputting. So it's basically saying between 109 and 110. So let's let this thing run, and we'll check back when it is back to 0%. And by the way, over here it says discharge, so as long as this rate remains constant, our discharge time should be estimated at about 4 hours. So we'll find out if that's accurate as well. We are at 0% state of charge. It does appear that my little space heater test is done running. So let me plug this into the wall outlet and see what we get. So the rated watt hours is 5,120 watt hours. And we pulled, what was it, 11 or 1,200 watt load here. Let's see what we get there. All right, so 4,690 watt hours out of a rated 5,120. If I do the math on that, that is almost 92%. So 91.6% of rated capacity. That's an extremely strong number. That is well above average of what I normally expect. So average I consider between 80 and 85% with 85 being the upper end of average. So 90 or 91% is well above average. So pretty impressed with that usable capacity number out of the AC inverter. All right, our little DC discharge capacity test is done. If we add up the two numbers here, we have 2,950.78 watt hours plus on this side 1,381 watt hours. So that gives us a total netted watt hours capacity of 4,331.78 watt hours. So that out of a rated 5,120 gives us I would say an upper average number of about 84.6% of rated capacity. So very respectable DC output numbers from this P5000. All right, as I recharge this thing to get ready for some AC inverter load testing, you can see I'm pulling in just under 600 watts of input. Now it does have a little switch on the side that I can switch down to go to quick charge, and you'll see that start to climb. Let's see how far that goes. And you can see now I'm pulling in just below 1,700 watts. So this adds literally 1,000 watts more charge going from the slow charge to quick charge. So I like the fact, and you can see there on the little icon it says supercharge, but I really do like the fact that if I am in a hurry, I can quick charge this, and if I am not in a hurry, I don't have to overstress the cells by constantly taking a higher input than I really need. So in quick charge mode, you can see I got about 3 hours. If I switch that back to kind of economy charge here, or slow charge mode, when this kind of drops back down, you'll now see the estimate in time goes to about 8 hours to take this from basically 0% state of charge to 100. So about 8 hours in slow and about 3 hours in fast, as indicated right there. So I like the fact that it does have a physical switch to do that. I'm starting to see more power stations, especially lately, that have a physical switch. That's kind of a new development, and one that I think is very welcome. So very glad to see that Oukitel is doing that on this particular P5000. All right, it took a little while for the fans to finally come on, but they are on, so let's see how loud this is. Right, so about 60 decibels. So yeah, the P5000 is not a particularly quiet power station, but at over 5,000 watt hours of capacity with a 2200 watt inverter, it does generate some noise when you are when you're charging and discharging this thing, as we'll see when we do the load testing. You can see it did cycle off. I'm actually in a pretty cool area right now, so I would imagine it's going to continue to cycle on and off during the course of the recharging cycle. All right, so I've got the P5000 here. It's in UPS mode because I do have grid power attached here, and I've got my sacrificial laptop connected to the AC inverter right here. Now I do have the battery removed on the laptop, so it will shut down immediately if the disruption is more than just a few milliseconds, really. And I am running some CPU and disk cycles here with Crystal Diskmark running in the background, just to kind of give it a load while we're running the test. So let me simulate a power outage and see if UPS mode does switch over fast enough. So let's pull grid power and see if there's any disruption to the laptop, see if it shuts down. Okay, laptop kept running. So UPS mode on the P5000 confirmed. Well, let's do some load testing on this AC inverter for the P5000. 2200 watt continuous rated pure sine wave inverter. I've got it fully charged right now. I do still have it plugged into grid power. You can see the way that it lists it. I'm inputting 700 watts, I'm outputting 700 watts. So I'm basically getting pass-through charge right here from the grid straight to the load. So if I remove grid power from the side, you'll see the input go away and the UPS will also disappear. And now we are just outputting. And you hear the fans kick on immediately. All right, let's see if we can take this thing up to 2200 watts, maybe a little more if we can swing it, find the right combination, and see if we can run this thing for 10 minutes. All right, with two oil heaters on, I'm pulling 2229. Let me go ahead and start the timer. See if we can get 2200 watt load, maximum rated load, for 10 minutes. definitely no problem running at about 23-25 watts over the continuous rated of 2200. Let me go ahead and stop that. All right, we are going to see if we can push this thing a little bit. Let me throw another couple hundred watts at it and see what it does. So it looks to me like we are being throttled. So voltage is dropping. We are now at 100 volts. All right, so Oukitel does call this constant power mode. And that is basically where it's going to maintain a constant power output of around 2000 or 2200 watts. Even if you put in more than that, up to about 3000, and as I mentioned, it'll throttle the voltage. But this is voltage throttling. This feature actually is something that you see on a variety of other power stations now. I'm just checking the manual to see if there's a way to turn that off. All right, so I reached out to Oukitel and to see if I could turn off this constant power mode, which is enabled, as evidenced by that little lightning icon right up there, that little lightning bolt. So they say that you can press and hold the AC button for 2 to 3 seconds, and that should disable the constant power. So let's see if that works. Yeah, so that went out. All right, now let's see what happens if we throw a higher load at this. Gotta turn the AC inverter on. All right, now I'm gonna push it so we'll be well over the 2200 watts here, and let's just see how it behaves. 2445. I would imagine we would get an overload error. About 20 seconds into this now. We're 224 watts overrated. There we go. Now we got the overload. So just about 25 to 30 seconds for that to trip. So pretty decent allowance for the overhead there. And yeah, really encouraging that I can turn that constant power mode off if I need to. All right, let's do a guitar amp test on the P5000. We're going to use my recently acquired dusty old GX15, which is very sensitive to harmonic distortion in a power signal. So I've got it hooked up right now down here to grid power. So we're going to see how it sounds with grid power. I'm going to boost the audio on the test so you can hear what the bass line is. So let's listen to it right now. All right, so a slight bit of hum just out of grid power that's normal for this particular old amp. Now, let's take this power cable here and plug it in to the P5000, and we'll power it back up. I'm going to boost it by the same amount, and we'll see if we get any more noise, any more harmonic distortion out of this AC inverter that produces an audible sound out of the amp. So let's check it out. Here we go. So it sounds the same to me. I would say the P5000 does pass the dusty old guitar amp test. Hey, by the way, if you're wondering what kinds of things you can run with a particular power station, maybe the one we just talked about, or how long that power station can run those items, I do have a Google spreadsheet that I'll link to in the video description below. And be aware that it is kind of a work in progress, but I do update it with new information as I'm able to collect it. Now I've got it sorted here starting right out based on average continuous watts, but you can also type in a particular power station's rated battery capacity and the rated continuous AC inverter output numbers. And the spreadsheet will put a green highlight on all of the items that the unit can power, at least individually, and a red highlight on the things that it cannot power. It'll also calculate an estimated runtime value representing either the number of hours or cycles that a particular device can be run on a power station with the rated capacity that you keyed in. So be sure to check out that link below in the video description if you think that information might be helpful to you. And hey, if you do want to contribute device information to the spreadsheet, just put a comment in the video below listing the device and how much power that device requires, and I'll try to add it to the spreadsheet so other people can benefit from that information. Okay, let's wrap up with some final comments and observations. And since this is a second floor office, there's just no way I'm going to give myself a hernia trying to drag that 115-pound P5000 up the stairs. So unless someone's got a Star Trek transporter that I can use to beam it up here, we're just going to have to wrap up without. Okay. So let's talk about the pros and cons of the P5000, and maybe let's start with what I'm sure for some of you is going to be the kind of the biggest con, and that is the 110 volt AC output. And for those of you who are in that camp, I'm sure that is likely a deal breaker for you. But I would also add that most major appliances like refrigerators and TVs are actually rated to accommodate a voltage range of down to 110 volts up to about 130 volts. And for other devices like lights, heaters, and most DC electronics like laptops, cameras, drones, things that use an AC adapter, and even the vast majority of desktop PC power supplies, those are typically rated to handle a range of down to 100 volts all the way up to 240 volts just fine. Now that said, if you are going to be running, say, an AC fridge or a television frequently, specifically on this P5000, then I think you would definitely want to turn off that constant power mode feature, because if you load up the inverter to where you're actually exceeding that 2200 watt threshold, you could actually see voltage drops down to about 100 volts, and that does have some potentially negative consequences for things like AC fridges and TVs. But other than that specific use case, I really don't see the 110 volt output to be a major concern. In fact, the reality of it is that many gas-powered generators actually output 110 volts, and quite often those are actually modified sine wave inverters, not pure sine wave inverters. And given the choice, I'd take 110 volts of pure sine wave inverter power over 120 volts of modified sine wave inverter power pretty much any time. Now, you're free to disagree with me on that, of course, but I've never really had an issue running 110 volt pure sine wave. Okay, moving on. A couple other things that you don't get with the P5000. There is no mobile app support. There's no wireless charging for phones, and there is no battery expansion options. So after that, you're probably thinking, well, with those feature sacrifices, this had better be priced pretty aggressively. And to that, I'd say, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. The normal price on the P5000 is $29.99, so just under $3,000, and that's on Amazon US. And for a power station with over 5,000 watt hours of rated capacity, that is already an extremely solid price. And typically, there's even a hefty coupon that knocks that price down to somewhere around 50 cents a watt hour on that price point. But for just this coming Black Friday and Cyber Monday, they're actually offering even bigger discounts on all of their products, including the P5000. And that'll get you the lowest price of the year that you'll see on this thing. And per usual, I'll put links to any of the applicable discount codes and URLs in the video description below for you if you want to go have a look at those sales. So I think if you are in the market right now for a high capacity all-in-one power station that does give you enough capacity for at least short-term home backup power, that gives you enough portability, including an RV30 output connector for camper and RV power connections, and you want the most capacity at the lowest cost, I do think that P5000 is certainly worth taking a serious look at, especially with these Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals they got going on. Okay, I think that's a wrap. I do hope you found at least something here in this video helpful. If you did, please consider clicking on that like button for me. I'd really appreciate that. And if you're not already a subscriber, maybe consider clicking the subscribe button as well. I've got a bunch of cool projects in the video queue, and maybe you'll find those or maybe something else I've already got on the channel helpful in some way. I do offer my sincere thanks for stopping by and watching this video, and I do hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.